The HOA sent inspectors to my property for no reason. I told the HOA to stay off my land. They smiled and walked right past my fence anyway. At first, I thought it was just ignorance. Then came the maps, the letters, the people treating my ranch like it was already theirs. I didn't argue. I didn't chase them off. I let it build, because I knew something they didn't. And when the sheriff finally read the deed out loud, everything they believed fell apart. If you've ever had someone test your boundaries, stick around and go ahead and subscribe. You'll want to see how this one ends. That morning I told them to stay off my land. I didn't shout it, didn't step forward or make a scene. I just said it once, clear enough that the wind didn't carry it away. The kind of tone a man uses when he's not asking. They smiled like I was joking. Then they stepped past the fence anyway. Boots on dry soil. Two of them. A man and a woman, dressed clean, too clean for where they were standing. The kind of clean that doesn't belong around cattle or barbed wire. I watched their shoes press into dirt that hadn't known anything but work and weather for 50 years. That dirt held more history than they'd ever care to understand. I leaned against the post and let it happen. Didn't move. Didn't repeat myself. Just watched. The fence line wasn't new. My father set those posts himself back when I was still small enough to carry a hammer and not much else. We didn't build it to keep people out. We built it to say something simple. This is where it changes. On one side, it's yours. On the other, it's not. Most folks understand that. These two didn't. The woman turned back after a few steps in, clipboard tucked under her arm like it meant something out here. "We're just taking a quick look," she said, voice light, like permission had already been granted. I didn't answer. The man nodded like we were all in agreement, like he'd just explained something reasonable. He lifted his phone and took a picture of the barn, another of the pasture, then one of the fence behind him, like he was documenting a place he already owned. That's when I straightened up. "You're on private land," I said. Same tone, same volume. This time the words didn't bounce off them the same way. The man lowered his phone. The woman gave me a look, not confused, not surprised, just measured, like she was checking something off in her head. "Right," she said. "We'll be quick." And just like that, she turned away again. Didn't step back, didn't apologize, kept walking. That was the moment I understood something wasn't right. It wasn't the trespass. That happens. People get lost. Lines blur if you don't respect them. It was the way they didn't care. Like the line didn't exist. Like I didn't. I let them finish whatever they thought they were doing. Watched them walk a slow loop along the edge of my south pasture, pointing at things that weren't theirs to point at. The barn, the gate, the old water trough I replaced last spring. They spoke low, but I caught pieces. Access would run cleaner this way. Visibility from the ridge. We'll need to adjust. Adjust. That word stuck. After 10 minutes, they walked back out the same way they came in. No rush, no concern. Just another glance at me like I was part of the scenery they'd just inspected. "Have a good morning," the man said, like we were neighbors, like this was normal. I didn't respond. They climbed into a white SUV parked just off the county road. Engine started, gravel shifted, and just like that, they were gone. The dust took longer to settle. I stood there a while after, staring at the tracks their tires left behind. Clean tread, new. The kind of vehicle that hadn't seen real work, just paved roads and weekend drives. Then I looked back at the fence. Nothing broken, nothing cut. But it felt different. Like something had already been crossed that wasn't as easy to fix as wire and wood. I walked the line anyway, checked each post, each stretch of barbed wire, more out of habit than concern. My father used to say you walk your boundaries when something feels off, not because you'll always find the problem, but because it reminds you what's yours. Halfway down the fence, I stopped. There were footprints inside the pasture, fresh, leading in from the gate, circling wide, then heading back out. I followed them with my eyes, not wandering, not lost, intentional. They hadn't stumbled onto my land. They'd stepped onto it, on purpose. I headed back toward the house and boots hitting dirt in a rhythm I'd known my whole life. The ranch wasn't big by Texas standards, but it was mine. Every acre, every post, every decision made on it. That wasn't changing. Not because someone showed up with clean boots and a clipboard. Inside, I poured a cup of coffee that had already gone lukewarm. Didn't bother heating it. Set it down on the counter and looked out the window toward the south fence. Still quiet. Cattle moving slow. Wind pushing through the grass. Nothing out of place. Except it wasn't. Because now I knew they'd be back. People who step over a line like that once don't usually stop there. Not when they think they're right. Not when they think they're in control of something bigger than you are. I picked up my phone and scrolled through a few contacts, then stopped. Didn't call anyone. Not yet. Instead, I grabbed a small notebook from the drawer and set it on the table, flipped it open to a blank page and wrote the date. Under it, I wrote 2 lines. Man and woman. White SUV. Entered through South Gate. Took photos. I paused, then added one more. I told them to leave. They didn't. Closed the notebook. Set it down. Out here, you don't react fast unless you have to. You watch first. You let things show themselves. Because most problems don't start big. They build. And whatever this was, it had just started. I finished the coffee anyway. Didn't taste like much. By the time the sun moved higher, the ranch looked exactly the way it always did. Quiet, open, untouched. Like nothing had happened. But that line I'd drawn that morning, it didn't feel like a line anymore. It felt like a question. And I had a feeling I wasn't going to like the answer. Because if they came back tomorrow, what exactly did they think they were walking into? I got my answer before noon. Same white SUV, same tires on the same stretch of gravel. Only this time, they didn't come alone. There were 3 of them now. The man and woman from yesterday stepped out first. Clean boots again, same clipboard, same quiet confidence. But behind them came someone new. A woman in a pressed blazer that didn't belong anywhere near dust, carrying herself like she'd already won something no one else knew about yet. She didn't wait at the gate. She opened it. Didn't even look toward the house. Didn't hesitate. Just reached out, lifted the latch like it was hers to touch, and walked straight through. That told me everything I needed to know. I stepped out onto the porch before they got 10 feet in. "You're not doing that again," I said. They stopped this time. All 3 turned. The woman in the blazer stepped forward, just a half pace ahead of the others, close enough to make it clear who was speaking for the group. "Mr. Turner?" she asked, like she already knew. I didn't answer. She smiled anyway. "Denise Whitaker," she said, "President of Sage Hollow Estates." There it was. Not neighbors. Not lost. HOA. She held a folder instead of a clipboard. Thicker. Cleaner. The kind of thing meant to look official whether it was or not. "We wanted to follow up on yesterday's visit," she continued. "Make sure we're all aligned moving forward." Aligned. I stepped off the porch and walked toward the fence, slow enough to make them wait. "We're already aligned," I said. "You stay on your side." That smile stayed right where it was. Well, she said, tilting her head slightly, that's exactly what we're here to clarify. She opened the folder, flipped to a page, and turned it just enough so I could see it without stepping closer. A map. My land was on it. Outlined. Not next to something. Inside something. This section here, she said, tapping the paper with a manicured nail, has been designated as a shared access corridor under Sage Hollow's Community Development Plan. I didn't move. Didn't lean in. Just looked at it from where I stood. Then I looked back at her home. No, it hasn't, I said. She blinked once, like she hadn't expected that answer. It's been filed with the county. I didn't sign anything, I cut in. Didn't sell anything. Didn't grant access to anything. Her tone didn't change, but something underneath it did. That's actually not required in this case, she said. Adjacent land can be incorporated under certain development provisions, especially when it benefits. Stop, I said. She did. The two behind her shifted slightly, like they were trying to read which way this was going. I reached into my back pocket, pulled out my wallet, and unfolded a piece of paper I kept there more out of habit than expectation. The deed. Copy, not original. But enough. I held it up. This is what matters, I said. My name. My boundary. Filed long before your subdivision even existed. She glanced at it. Just glanced. Didn't step closer. Didn't ask to see it. Didn't care. That's your interpretation, she said calmly. That was the moment something settled in my chest. Not anger, not yet. Something colder. You don't believe me, I said. I believe, she replied, that there are multiple layers to property usage and community alignment. Community alignment. The man behind her shifted his weight, trying to look agreeable. The woman with the clipboard started writing something down, like this was already part of a report. You walked past a fence yesterday, I said. You're doing it again today. That's not alignment. That's trespassing. Denise's smile tightened just a fraction. We're not here to escalate anything, Mr. Turner. We're here to make sure things stay harmonious as Sage Hollow continues to grow. Harmonious, I repeated. She nodded. Residents have already expressed interest in safe walking access through this section, she continued. And from a property value standpoint, maintaining a cohesive landscape. I laughed once. Short, no humor in it. You think this is part of your neighborhood, I said. I think, she replied, it's part of a larger community vision. There it was again. Not confusion. Certainty. Not a question. A decision already made. I folded the deed back up, slow enough for her to watch. Let me make this simple, I said. You don't have access. You don't have rights. And you don't get to decide what happens on my land. She didn't answer right away. Just studied me, like she was measuring something. Then she closed the folder. We'll be in touch, she said. Not defensive, not apologetic. Just final. She turned without another word and walked back toward the gate. The other two followed, a step behind, glancing back once like they were trying to memorize the place. The gate closed behind them, but not all the way. The latch didn't catch. I walked over and fixed it myself. Then I stood there a minute, looking at the road where their SUV disappeared. Shared access corridor. I said it out loud, just to hear how wrong it sounded. Inside the house, I pulled the notebook back out. Same page. New lines. Denise Whitaker, HOA President. Claims land included in development. I paused, then added, presented map, ignored deed, set the pen down. That part mattered. Not that she was wrong. but that she didn't care. I went to the window and looked back out toward the south fence. Still quiet. Still mine. But now there was something sitting on top of it. Not a mistake. Not a misunderstanding. A plan. And plans don't stop after one conversation. They move forward. I had a feeling the next step wasn't going to be a conversation at all. Because if they were willing to stand on my land and tell me it wasn't mine, what were they going to do when I told them again? I didn't have to wait long to find out. They didn't come back with Denise. They didn't come back with a folder. They came back in pieces. First, it was a couple I hadn't seen before, mid-morning, walking slow along the fence line like they were deciding whether to cross or not. I watched from the barn, hands resting on the gate latch. They didn't look around much, didn't hesitate. They just stepped through. No knock, no call, just in. I walked toward them, boots steady on packed dirt. "You lost?" I asked. The man turned, surprised for half a second. Then that same smile I'd seen before came back. "No, sir," he said. "We're just out getting a look around the area." The woman nodded, holding her phone up like it explained everything. "Beautiful property," she added. I stopped about 10 feet short. "This isn't a view," I said. "It's private land." They exchanged a look. Not confused, not nervous, just polite. "We were told there'd be access through here," the man said. "Told by who?" He hesitated, then shrugged. "The HOA mentioned it." There it was again. Not a mistake. A message being passed around like fact. "You were told wrong," I said. They didn't argue, didn't push, just smiled again, turned, and walked back the way they came. But they didn't apologize either, and that mattered more. Because people who make a mistake fix it. People who follow instructions come back. By afternoon, I had 3 more. Different faces, same pattern. Walk in, look around, act like they belonged, and every one of them used the same words when I stopped them. Community access, shared space, future trail. It wasn't random anymore. It was coordinated. I didn't argue with them, didn't waste time explaining the same thing over and over. I just watched. And then I started writing. The notebook stayed on the kitchen table, open now. Pen next to it. Every time someone crossed that fence, I added a line. Time. Description. What they said. By sunset, I had 7 entries, 7 different people, all stepping onto land that hadn't changed hands in over 50 years. That night, I sat at the table, flipping back through the page. 7 lines didn't look like much, but they weren't separate. They were building. I added one more note at the bottom. Language consistent, repeating phrases. Closed the book. That was the first time it felt less like trespassing and more like preparation. The next morning, it got worse. I heard them before I saw them. Voices, more than one. I stepped out onto the porch and counted 5 people already inside the fence, walking a loose line across the pasture like they were following something invisible. One of them had a camera. Another had a dog. That one made my jaw tighten. "Call it back," I said, loud enough to carry. The woman holding the leash looked up. "Oh, he's friendly," she said. "I didn't ask if he was friendly," I replied. "I said call it back." She hesitated, then did it. But the look she gave me wasn't apologetic. It was irritated. Like I'd interrupted something she had a right to. That was new. I walked down to the fence line again, stopping them before they went any farther. "You need to turn around," I said. A man in a baseball cap stepped forward. "We're allowed to be here," he said. "Who told you that, Sage Hollow?" He said it like it settled the matter, like a name was enough to override a boundary. I looked at him for a second longer than necessary. "You're not," I said. "And this is the last time I'm saying it." That changed something. Not in what they did, but in how they looked at me. Before, it was polite. Now it was dismissive. Like I was the one out of place. Like I hadn't caught up to something everyone else already knew. They turned and left, but slower this time. Less careful, like they were walking away from a disagreement, not a warning. I stood there until they cleared the gate. Then I closed it, latched it, checked it twice. That afternoon, the first letter showed up. It wasn't in the mailbox. It was tucked into the wire of the fence itself, folded clean, no envelope. I pulled it free and opened it right there. Printed, no signature. Notice of non-compliance. I read the first line twice. It claimed my fencing created visual obstruction inconsistent with community standards. Community standards. I looked out across the pasture. Barbed wire. Wood posts. Same setup that had been there since before Sage Hollow existed. Same setup that had never been a problem until now. The letter went on. Failure to address these concerns may result in further action. Further action. No authority. No legal reference. Just pressure. I folded it back up and slipped it into my pocket. Didn't tear it. Didn't throw it away. That night, it went into the notebook, stapled to the page under the entries. 7 people. 1 letter. Same direction. The next day, another one came. This time in the mailbox. Same format. Different complaint. Livestock visibility affecting property values. I read that one slower. Not because I didn't understand it. Because I did. They weren't just walking my land anymore. They were building a case. Not a real one. But something that could look real if enough pieces stacked together. Complaints. Photos. Reports. Words repeated often enough to start sounding like truth. I set the letter down next to the first one. Then I walked out to the barn and looked across the fence line. Nothing had changed, but everything had. Because now it wasn't about whether they believed me. It was about whether they needed to. And that answer was already clear. I went back inside, opened the notebook again, and added another line. Letters escalating. Coordinated. Then I sat there for a minute, pen still in my hand. Thinking. They were pushing, not hard enough to break something, just enough to see what would give. Most people would have argued, called, threatened, given them exactly what they were waiting for. A reaction. I closed the notebook, set the pen down, and made a decision. If they were going to build something out of nothing, I was going to build something real. Because when people start ignoring the truth, they're not just being stubborn, they're preparing to replace it. And I wasn't going to let them write that version without a fight. The only question left was, what exactly were they planning to turn my land into? I got my answer from someone who wasn't supposed to give it. Mason Doyle didn't come up the driveway. He parked half a mile down the county road and walked the rest. That told me enough before he even reached the fence. I met him by the gate. "You're picking the wrong place to take a stroll," I said. He didn't smile, didn't look around, just reached into his jacket and pulled out a folded sheet of paper. "You need to see this," he said. I didn't take it right away. Mason wasn't the kind of man who spooked easy, lived just outside Sage Hollow, kept to himself, fixed engines for half the people in that development, whether he liked them or not. If he was walking dirt roads to hand me something, it mattered. I unfolded the paper slow. It wasn't a letter. It was a map. Clean print. Color-coded. Professional. Sage Hollow Estates across the top. My ranch wasn't outside the boundary. It was inside it. Outlined in the same bold line as the rest of the subdivision. No break. No distinction. Just absorbed. I looked at it once. Then again. Then I flipped it over like that might change what I was seeing. It didn't. "They're passing this around at meetings," Mason said. "Residents, prospective buyers, anyone asking about future plans." "Future plans," I repeated. He nodded. "Trail system," he said. "Green space access. They're telling people it's already accounted for." I looked back down at the map. Not adjacent, not neighboring. Included. "They ever mention my name?" I asked. "No." That made sense. "You don't name the thing you're planning to remove." "How long?" I asked. "Couple weeks," he said. "Long enough that folks are starting to believe it." I folded the map back along the crease and handed it to him. "Keep it," he said. "I've got copies." I slipped it into my back pocket. "Why show me?" I asked. Mason shrugged, but there was something tight in it. "Because I've heard what they're saying about you," he said, "and it doesn't match what I see standing here." I nodded once. That was enough. He turned to leave, then stopped halfway back to the road. "One more thing," he said without looking back. "They've got someone coming out your way. Not HOA." "Who?" "Money," he said. "And money doesn't knock unless it already knows something." Then he kept walking. I watched him go until the dust swallowed him up. Then I pulled the map back out. Looked at it again. Same lines. Same lie. But now I knew where it was coming from. And who it was meant for. By mid-afternoon, the second part of Mason's warning showed up. Silver SUV. Different from the white one. Cleaner. Lower. The kind of vehicle that doesn't belong on gravel roads, but drives them anyway. It didn't stop at the gate. It idled. Like it was waiting for me to come to it. I didn't. I walked down slow, hands empty, and stopped on my side of the fence. The driver stepped out. Mid-30s, clean jeans, boots that looked new but had just enough dust on them to pass at a distance. He closed the door like he was arriving somewhere he already owned. "Caleb Turner?" he asked. I nodded once. He smiled. Easy. "Ryan Keller," he said. "I work with a development group out of Austin." I didn't respond. He reached into the back seat, pulled out a folder, and held it against the top rail of the fence between us. "Mind if we talk?" he asked. "We're talking," I said. He chuckled like that was a good answer. "Fair enough," he said. "I'll get right to it. We've been reviewing land parcels in this area, and yours came up." "Funny how that happens," I said. He ignored it. "You're sitting on a valuable piece of land," he continued, "especially with Sage Hollow expanding the way it is." There it was again. Same name. Different angle. "I'm not selling," I said. He held up a hand, calm. "I'm not asking you to sell," he said, "not outright." He opened the folder and slid a single page forward. Numbers, clean, rounded, bigger than most people ever see attached to their name. "Access rights," he said. "Limited, controlled. You keep ownership. We get passage through a defined corridor. Everybody wins." I didn't look at the number again. Didn't need to. "What corridor?" I asked. He tapped the paper lightly. "The one that already makes the most sense," he said. "South fence line. It aligns with Sage Hollow's internal layout." I felt something shift in my chest. Not surprise. Confirmation. "You've seen their map," I said. It wasn't a question. He paused, just for a second, then smiled again. "We've seen a lot of things," he said. That was enough. I stepped closer to the fence, just enough to close the distance. "You're offering to buy access to something I haven't agreed to give," I said. "Not yet," he replied. "And you're basing that offer on a layout that doesn't exist." "It exists on paper," he said. "That paper's wrong." He shrugged. "Paper changes," he said, "all the time." I held his gaze a second longer. "Not this one," I said. He didn't push, didn't argue, just closed the folder and tucked it back under his arm. "Think about it," he said. "Areas like this, they don't stay the same forever." "Some do," I said. He studied me then. Really studied me. Like he was trying to decide which kind of man I was. Then he nodded once. "All right," he said. "But I'll be back." "I know," I replied. He got into the SUV, started it, and pulled away without another word. Didn't look back. Didn't need to, because men like that don't come out twice unless they're sure there's something worth taking. I stood there until the sound of the engine faded. Then I turned and walked back to the house. The notebook was still open on the table. I added 2 new entries. Mason Doyle provided HOA map showing land included. Ryan Keller offered to buy access rights based on same layout. I paused, then wrote one more line under both. Coordinated. Closed the book. Set it down. They weren't guessing. They weren't testing. They were building something. Piece by piece, map, narrative, pressure, offer, all leading in one direction. And if that direction didn't include me, they were planning to move me out of it. I walked back to the window and looked out at the south fence. Still standing. Still straight. Still mine. But now I could see it the way they did. Not as a boundary, as an obstacle. And people don't redraw maps unless they intend to make the real world match them, which meant the next step wasn't going to be conversation. It was going to be pressure. The kind that doesn't ask. The kind that tries to make you give up what you never offered in the first place. And the worst part wasn't the map. It wasn't the offer. It was how clean it all fit together. Like they'd done this before. Like they knew exactly how far they could push. Before something broke. The only question left was, how far were they planning to take it? I got my answer 3 days later. It didn't come from Denise. It didn't come from Ryan Keller. It came in a white county truck with a logo on the door. Livestock compliance. The driver didn't wave when he pulled in. Didn't look around like he was lost. He parked close to the barn, stepped out with a clipboard, and walked straight toward me like he'd been here before. "Caleb Turner?" he asked. I nodded. "We received a complaint," he said. "Concern about animal conditions and possible hazard exposure near the fence line." There it was. First layer. Not a conversation. A report. "From who?" I asked. He shook his head. "Can't disclose that," he said. "Standard procedure." Of course it was. I stepped aside and let him look. He checked the feed bins, water trough, fence spacing. Walked slow, writing things down that didn't need writing. The cattle barely noticed him. Healthy. Fed. Calm. Everything exactly the way it had been for years. After 20 minutes, he closed the clipboard. "I don't see anything actionable," he said, "but we'll log the visit." "Log it however you want," I replied. He nodded once and walked back to the truck. Didn't apologize. Didn't explain. Just drove off. I stood there watching the dust settle again. First report. No result. But it wasn't meant to. It was meant to start something. The next truck came 2 days later. Different logo. Environmental review. Same script. Same tone. Complaint about potential runoff affecting downstream properties. I leaned against the fence while they walked the lower edge near the drainage line. Took pictures. Measured distances. Asked questions that sounded official, but didn't mean anything without context. "Have you altered water flow in the past 6 months?" one of them asked. "No." He wrote something down anyway. They left the same way the first guy did. No issue. No citation. Just record. By the time the third visit came, I stopped asking questions. Code enforcement. This one walked straight to the barn and pointed at the siding. "Has this structure been updated recently?" he asked. No. He circled it anyway. Measured angles. Took photos. Community-facing structures are subject to... "This isn't a community," I cut in. He paused, then kept writing. Didn't argue. Didn't need to, because none of them were here to win an argument. They were here to build a file. That night, I sat at the table with the notebook open again. 3 visits. 3 different departments. Same timing. Same direction. I stapled each notice, each business card, each printed report to the page under the map Mason gave me. Map. Offer. Inspections. All stacked in order. All pointing at the same thing. Pressure. Not enough to break anything. Just enough to make a man tired. Make him question whether it was worth it. Whether holding onto a line that nobody else respected made sense anymore. I leaned back in the chair and looked at the page. They weren't trying to take the land directly. Not yet. They were trying to make it easier for me to give it up. That's when the drone showed up. Low. Quiet. Different from the ones you see kids flying on weekends. This one hovered, slow sweep across the pasture, paused over the barn, turned toward the house. I stepped outside before it finished the pass. Didn't wave, didn't throw anything. Just stood there and let it see me. It didn't move right away, just hovered. Camera pointed straight at me, then it tilted, slight adjustment, like it was getting a better angle. That's when I turned and walked back inside. Not because I was done, because I knew what came next. I pulled a box from the shelf in the back room. Trail cameras. Unused. Still in packaging. I'd bought them years ago for the North Line after a string of fence cuts that turned out to be nothing more than a broken latch and a neighbor's loose calf. Never needed them. Until now. By midnight, 2 were mounted along the south fence. 1 angled toward the gate. 1 covering the low stretch near the drainage. I didn't hide them. Didn't camouflage them. Let them sit there, visible enough that anyone looking would see them. Message sent without saying a word. You're not the only one watching. The next morning, the drone didn't come back, but the people did. Fewer this time. More careful. Walking the edge instead of stepping straight through. Looking at the fence before they crossed it. Checking for cameras. Adjusting behavior. That told me everything I needed to know. They'd noticed, which meant it mattered. By afternoon, another letter showed up. This one thicker. Envelope. Return address printed. Sage Hollow Estates. I opened it at the table. Final notice of non-compliance. New wording. Stronger tone. Failure to align with community standards may result in escalation through appropriate channels. Appropriate channels. I read that line twice. Then I set the letter down next to the others. They weren't just testing anymore. They were moving forward. Map. Offer. Inspection. Notice. Each step closer than the last. Each one designed to look separate. But they weren't. They were coordinated. I flipped to a new page in the notebook, drew a line down the middle. On one side, I wrote, "Their moves." On the other, "Mine." Under theirs, I listed everything. Under mine, nothing yet. I stared at that empty column for a long minute. Then I wrote the first word. Record. Closed the book. Set it down. Walked back out to the fence line one more time before sunset. Everything looked the same. Cattle grazing, wire holding, gate closed. But now there were cameras watching, logs building, records stacking. They thought they were building pressure. What they didn't realize was they were building evidence. And evidence doesn't argue. It waits. The only question now wasn't what they were doing. It was how far they were willing to go. Before they realized they'd already gone too far. It happened on a Saturday. They picked it on purpose. Weekends meant more people, more witnesses, more noise to drown out anything that didn't fit their version of things. I heard it before I saw it. Cars, not one or two, a line. Engines rolling slow down the county road, gravel crunching steady like something organized. I stepped out onto the porch and counted 6 vehicles before I stopped trying. By the time I reached the fence, they were already inside. Not sneaking, not hesitating. Walking in like it had always belonged to them. There were signs, too. That was new. 2 of them, planted just inside my south fence. White posts, clean lettering. Private community access. Sage Hollow Estates. I stopped 10 feet short of the first one. Looked at it, then looked past it. Families. Kids running ahead. Couples walking slow, pointing at the barn, the pasture. The line of trees along the drainage. Phones out. Smiling. Talking like they were touring something finished, not something they were taking. Denise stood near the center of it, not at the front, not hiding either. Right where she could be seen without having to lead. Clipboard in hand again, but this time she wasn't writing anything down. She was watching, managing. When she saw me, she didn't flinch. Just stepped forward like she'd been expecting it. "Mr. Turner," she said, voice calm, even with half a dozen people moving around behind her. "We're just hosting a small community walk, introducing residents to the shared spaces." Shared spaces. I glanced at the sign again, then back at her. "You put that up on my land," I said. "It's within the planned access corridor," she replied, which I didn't agree to. She tilted her head slightly, like we'd already covered that. "Development plans don't always require individual consent in early phases," she said. Behind her, a kid kicked at the dirt near my fence post. Another man stepped closer to the barn, taking pictures from 3 different angles. No one was stopping them. No one was asking. They were just using it. I could have walked over and pulled the sign out of the ground. Could have told every one of them to leave. Could have called the sheriff right then. Instead, I stepped back. Not far. Just enough to see everything. Every face, every step, every moment they acted like this was already done. Denise watched me do it. There was something in her expression then. Not relief. Expectation. Like she'd been waiting for me to react, and didn't know what to do now that I wasn't. "You're going to want to reconsider your position," she said, lowering her voice just enough that it didn't carry to the others. "This is moving forward with or without your cooperation." I didn't answer. Didn't argue. Just looked past her at the people walking my land. "Enjoy your walk," I said. She blinked. That wasn't what she expected. "Excuse me?" she asked. I nodded once toward the pasture. "You brought them out here," I said. "Might as well show them everything." Her eyes narrowed slightly. Behind her, one of the residents waved to someone across the fence line like they were already neighbors. Another took a picture of the sign itself, documenting the lie. I turned and walked back toward the house. Didn't rush. Didn't look back. But I could feel it. The shift, confusion. They didn't understand why I wasn't fighting, why I wasn't stopping them, why I was letting it happen. Inside, I went straight to the back room, pulled the laptop out, powered it on. The camera feeds came up one by one. South fence, gate, drainage line, barn approach, every angle covered, every step they were taking, recorded. I adjusted one camera remotely, zooming slightly toward the sign. Caught Denise standing beside it, speaking to a small group, explaining something, pointing toward the fence line like it was already theirs. I saved the clip, labeled it, public use claim. Then I switched feeds, more people entering, more movement, more proof. Outside, I could hear them, voices, laughter, the sound of something that didn't belong. Inside, it was quiet. Just the hum of the laptop and the soft click of keys as I logged timestamps. Entry after entry, date, time, number of individuals, sign placement, statements made. I wasn't watching anymore. I was collecting. An hour later, the cars started leaving, one by one. Same slow roll back down the county road. Same dust settling behind them. By the time it was over, the signs were still there. The fence was still intact. But the line had been crossed in front of witnesses. Publicly. Intentionally. I stepped back outside once the last car disappeared. Walked down to the sign. Stood in front of it. Didn't touch it. Didn't pull it out. Not yet. Because right now, it was more useful where it stood. Proof, I took one picture. Just one. Then I walked the fence line again. Checked the cameras. Checked the latch. Everything still working. Everything still mine. But now it was different. Not because they took something. Because they showed what they were willing to do. Out loud. In public. With confidence. I headed back inside and opened the notebook again. New page. I didn't list individuals this time. I wrote one line. HOA conducted public event on property. Installed signage. Encouraged use. Then underneath it, witnesses present. Closed the book. Set it beside the others. Map. Letters. Reports. Now this. They thought today was a victory. Thought they'd moved things forward. Made it real. What they didn't understand was they hadn't taken control. They'd handed me something better. Something they couldn't argue with later. Because when people say something once, you can deny it. When they say it in front of a crowd, that becomes evidence. I walked back to the window and looked out at the sign again. Still standing there. Clean. Confident. Wrong. And for the first time since this started, I didn't feel like I was behind anymore. Because they weren't just pushing. They were exposing themselves. And once that happens, the next move doesn't belong to them. It belongs to whoever's been paying attention. The only question now was, when exactly did I decide to stop watching and start using what they'd just given me? It wasn't during the walk. It wasn't when they put the sign in the ground. It was that night, when everything got quiet again. I sat at the kitchen table with the laptop open, replaying the footage from earlier. Not fast, not skimming, frame by frame. Denise, standing beside that sign. Residents walking through the fence line. People pointing at my barn like it was part of a brochure. Every second of it clear. Public. Unavoidable. I paused the video on one frame. Denise, mid-sentence, hand raised slightly like she was explaining something official. Behind her, the sign. Private community access. I zoomed in, saved the still. Then I leaned back in the chair and finally picked up my phone. I didn't scroll, didn't hesitate. I called Sheriff Cole Bennett. He picked up on the second ring. "Turner," he said. "Everything all right out there?" "No," I said, "but it's about to be." That got his attention. "Talk to me." I kept it simple. Trespassing, organized, public use claims, signs installed. I've got it all on camera. There was a pause on the other end. Not doubt. Assessment. "How many people?" he asked. 20, maybe more. "Anyone threaten you?" "No." "Damage anything?" "No." Another pause. "That helps," he said. "It does?" I asked. "Means they think they're in the right," he replied. "People who know they're breaking the law don't usually bring witnesses." I looked back at the paused frame. "That's what I figured," I said. "You got proof?" he asked. "Enough to make them uncomfortable," I said. "Maybe more." Another silence. Then, "Don't touch anything," Cole said. "Leave the signs where they are. Don't confront them again. Let it sit." "I already did," I said. "Good," he replied. "That gives us something clean to work with." Us. That word landed different. "Come by tomorrow," he added. "Bring everything you've got." "I will." I hung up. Then I made the second call. Hannah Price. She didn't pick up, didn't expect her to, but she called back 10 minutes later. "Caleb," she said, "what happened?" I gave her the same version. Short, direct. By the time I got to the sign, she cut in. "They installed signage?" she asked. "Yes." "On your land?" "Yes." "Public event?" "Yes." There was a shift in her voice, subtle but sharp. "Good," she said. I leaned back in the chair. "That's not the word I was expecting," I replied. "It's the right one," she said. "Up until now, it's been pressure, complaints, narrative, all gray. And now? Now it's black and white," she said. "They just made a public claim over private property. That's not a misunderstanding. That's actionable." I looked at the notebook on the table, at the pages filled with entries. "They've been building something," I said. "So have you," she replied. I didn't answer that right away, because she wasn't wrong. "What do you need?" she asked. "Everything," I said. "Logs, footage, copies of their letters, the map." "Bring it all," she said, "and don't alter anything. No edits, no commentary. Let it speak for itself." "That's the plan." "One more thing," she added. "Don't remove the signs yet." Cole said the same thing. "Then listen to him," she said. "Right now, those signs are more valuable standing than they are in the dirt." I ended the call and sat there for a minute. Two people. Same advice. Same direction. That told me I was finally standing in the right place. Not reacting. Not defending. Positioning. The next morning, I packed everything into a single box. Notebook. Printed stills. USB drive with footage. Copies of every letter. Even the map Mason gave me. Nothing organized for show, just laid out in order. The way it happened. Cole met me at the station. Didn't waste time. We spread everything across a table in a back room. The kind that didn't get used unless something mattered. He didn't talk while he looked. Didn't ask questions right away. Just went through it piece by piece. The notebook first, then the stills, then the footage. When he saw the sign, he paused. rewound it, watched it again. "That's clear," he said. "It was meant to be," I replied. He nodded once. "Yeah," he said, "for them." He sat back slightly, eyes still on the screen. "They think this is already settled," he added. "They've been acting like it for weeks." "Acting's one thing," he said. "Declaring it in front of people, that's different." He looked up at me then. "Means they've committed to it." I nodded. That's what I was waiting for. He let that sit for a second. Then he reached for the map, studied it longer than anything else. "They're showing this to buyers?" he asked. "That's what Mason said." Cole exhaled slowly. "That's not just trespass," he said. "That starts getting into misrepresentation." I didn't say anything. Didn't need to. He stacked the papers back together and tapped them once on the table. "You've done this right," he said. "By not doing anything?" "By letting them do everything," he replied. That landed, because it was true. I hadn't stopped them. I'd let them show exactly what they were willing to do when no one pushed back. And now it was all here. Recorded, timed, documented. "So what happens next?" I asked. Cole leaned back in his chair. "Now," he said, "we stop them the right way." I picked up the box and closed it. Not because we were done, because something had changed. Up until now, they were moving forward, pushing, expanding, writing their version. Now, that stopped, because I wasn't just watching anymore. I was using it. And once you start using the truth instead of arguing it, the balance shifts. The only question left was, how long before they realized the ground they were standing on wasn't theirs to claim? Longer than I expected. That was the surprising part. I figured once Cole got involved, once Hannah started pulling threads, something would shift fast. Pressure would come back harder. Denise would show up with lawyers. The signs would multiply. Instead, nothing. Monday came and went. No visitors. No cars slowing down at the gate. No footsteps crossing the fence like it had become routine. Even the drone didn't come back. It was quiet. Too quiet. I walked the fence line twice that day. Not because I expected to find anything new, but because something felt off. The signs were still there. Same place, same wording, untouched. But now they didn't look confident. They looked exposed, like something that had been left behind. By Tuesday, the quiet started to make sense. My cameras picked up movement again, but not like before. No families, no casual walks, just two people near the south fence, standing outside the wire this time. One of them pointing, the other holding a laser measure. They didn't cross, didn't step in, just observed, measured distances, checked angles, then left. I pulled the footage up on the laptop that night and replayed it twice. They weren't exploring anymore. They were recalculating. That meant something had changed. I flipped open the notebook again and added a line. Behavior shift. No entry, only perimeter activity. Underneath it, I wrote, "They know, because that's what it looked like. They hadn't stopped. They'd adjusted." Wednesday morning, the first sign disappeared. Not mine, theirs. The one closest to the drainage line. Gone. No announcement, no explanation. Just pulled out of the ground like it had never been there. I walked over to where it had stood. Fresh dirt still loose around the post holes. No attempt to cover it. Just removed. That wasn't retreat. That was cleanup. I took a photo anyway, logged it, then checked the camera feed. Sure enough, two people had come in just before sunrise. Pulled the sign, loaded it into a truck, left within 5 minutes. No hesitation, no discussion. like they'd been told exactly what to do. By afternoon, the second sign was gone too. Same method, same timing, same quiet. I didn't touch anything, didn't call anyone, didn't ask, because this wasn't over. This was repositioning. The next piece came that evening. A letter, certified this time, not tucked into the fence, not dropped loose in the mailbox. Signed. Official. Sage Hollow Estates Board Notice. I opened it at the table. Different tone. No more non-compliance, no more community standards. This one was careful. Clarification of development boundaries. Under review. I read that line twice. Then the next. Previous materials distributed to residents may not reflect final determinations. May not reflect. That was as close to an admission as they were going to get on paper. No apology, no correction, just distance, creating space between what they said and what they could prove. I set the letter down next to the others. Map, complaints, notices. Now this. Every step they'd taken forward, now being pulled back, but not erased, just softened. I leaned back in the chair and let it sit. They weren't doubling down. They were backing off, carefully, quietly, trying to make it look like nothing had ever happened. That meant one thing. They'd seen what I had, or someone had shown it to them. Either way, they knew the line they crossed wasn't going to hold up. Thursday, Ryan Keller came back. Same silver SUV, same clean boots. But he didn't wait this time. He walked straight up to the fence and stopped on his side. Didn't open the gate. Didn't step in. That alone told me everything. "Caleb," he said, tone different now. Less smooth, less certain. I walked out to meet him. Didn't say anything. Let him go first. He rested his hands lightly on the top rail of the fence like he was testing something invisible. "I think there's been some misunderstanding," he said. I looked at him for a second, then at the spot where the sign used to stand. "Funny word," I said. He nodded. "Yeah," he replied. "Things got ahead of themselves." "They didn't get ahead," I said. "They got pushed." He didn't argue that. Didn't try to correct it. "That map," he said. "It wasn't finalized." "It was printed," I replied. "That doesn't make it legal." "No," I said. "But it makes it intentional." That landed. He exhaled once, slow. "We're reevaluating," he said. "The access idea, the development plan. Everything." I didn't respond. He waited a second. Then, "If there's a way to resolve this without escalation," there it was. The shift. Not offering anymore. Asking. I leaned against the fence post. "There was always a way," I said. He looked up. "And that is?" he asked. "Stay off my land," I replied. He held my gaze. Longer this time. Then nodded. "Understood," he said. He stepped back from the fence. Didn't reach for the folder. Didn't bring up numbers. Just turned and walked back to his SUV. No deal. No offer. No leverage left. He drove off slower than before, like something had changed direction. I stood there until he disappeared down the road. Then I looked back at the pasture. Still quiet. Still mine. But now something else was there. Not pressure. Not intrusion. Awareness. They knew they'd crossed something they couldn't walk back easily. And for the first time since this started, they weren't the ones moving forward. I was. The only question left was, what would happen when they were forced to stand there? and hear it said out loud. It happened the following Saturday. Same day of the week they chose the first time. Same pattern. Cars rolling in, people gathering. Except this time, it wasn't just them. I was already standing by the fence when the first SUV pulled up. Denise stepped out. No clipboard this time. No smile either. Just that same steady posture, like she still believed this would go her way. Behind her, a smaller group followed. Not as many as before. Fewer families. More board members. More people who knew what was at stake. They didn't put signs up. Didn't spread out. They stayed near the gate. Waiting. That told me everything. They weren't here to show the land anymore. They were here to hold it. I didn't move. Didn't say anything. Just stood there on my side of the fence. Then another vehicle pulled in. County cruiser. Sheriff Cole Bennett stepped out, hat low, expression neutral. Not rushed, not tense, just present. That shifted the air immediately. Denise saw him and straightened slightly, like she'd expected resistance, but not authority. "Sheriff," she said, stepping forward, "we're glad you're here. There's been some confusion about property boundaries." Cole didn't respond. He walked past her. Straight to me. "Caleb," he said. "Cole," I replied. He nodded once, then turned back toward the group. "Let's keep this simple," he said, voice calm but carrying. "I've been asked to clarify a property dispute." Denise stepped forward again. "This isn't a dispute," she said quickly. "It's a matter of development alignment. The HOA has documented plans showing—" "Do you have a deed?" Cole asked. That stopped her. Just for a second. "That's not how this works," she said. "We have filed plans with the county. We have—" "Do you have a deed?" he repeated. Her jaw tightened. "No," she said. "But—" "Then we're not starting there," he replied. Silence settled in. Not the quiet from before. This was different. This was attention. Every person standing there now, listening for what came next. Cole turned slightly toward me. "You got your paperwork?" he asked. I nodded. Reached into the folder I'd brought this time. Not just a copy in my pocket anymore. Full document. Original certification. Stamped. Filed. Unchanged. I handed it to him. He took it without ceremony. Opened it. Looked at the first page. Then he stepped forward, just enough that everyone could hear him without raising his voice. "Recorded deed," he said. "Filed under Caleb Turner. Parcel boundaries clearly defined." Denise shifted again. "Sheriff, with respect, development plans." He didn't look up. "Do not override ownership," he said. Then he turned a page. "Read the boundary description out loud. Every line. Every marker. Fence line. Drainage edge. Tree break. All of it. Spoken clearly. Publicly. Undeniably." I watched the faces as he read. One by one they changed. Confusion first, then doubt, then something heavier, because hearing it is different than being told. Hearing it makes it real. Denise tried again. "This doesn't account for community access provisions." Cole closed the document, looked at her directly. "Ma'am," he said, calm as ever, "there are no provisions in this document granting your association access to this land." She opened her mouth to respond, but nothing came out. Behind her, one of the board members looked down at the ground. Another glanced at the spot where the sign used to be, like they were replaying something in their heads. Cole handed the deed back to me. Then he stepped back, giving the space back to what it had always been. Mine. "This is private property," he said to the group. Access without permission is trespassing. Continued use under false claim could lead to further action. No threats. No raised voice, just facts. That was enough. Denise stood still for a moment longer. Then she turned. Didn't argue. Didn't try to recover it. She just walked back toward her vehicle. The others followed. Not as confident this time. Not as certain. No one lingered. No one asked questions. They left the way they came. Quiet. One by one. Until the road was empty again. Cole stayed a minute longer. "You all right?" he asked. "Yeah," I said. He nodded once. "Good," he replied. "Because that's the cleanest resolution you're going to get out here." I looked down at the deed in my hands, then back out at the fence. "Clean works," I said. He gave a small half-smile. "Usually does," he replied. Then he turned, got back in the cruiser, and drove off, leaving the dust to settle again. I stood there alone for a while after, not moving, not thinking much, just letting it sit. The same land, the same fence, but something had shifted. Not out here, out there, in the way they saw it, because it wasn't an idea anymore. It wasn't a map. It wasn't a plan. It was a line. Defined. Read. Heard. And once something like that gets said out loud, there's no rewriting it. The only question left was, what happens after the people who tried to take something realized they never had it to begin with? At first, nothing. That was the part no one talks about. No big confrontation. No apology. No second meeting to clear things up. Just silence. The kind that follows when something collapses quietly and everyone involved pretends they weren't standing on it when it did. By Monday, the road outside the fence looked like it always had. Empty. No cars slowing down. No people walking the edge. No one testing the latch like it might open again. I walked the south line just after sunrise. Same routine, same pace. But this time, there were no footprints cutting across the pasture. No fresh tracks, no signs. Just the ground settling back into itself, like it had been waiting for things to stop. The holes where the signs had been were still there. Small, uneven. Easy to miss if you didn't know what you were looking for. I stopped at one of them, looked down, then kept walking, because I didn't need to fill them. They weren't mine to fix. By midweek, the letters stopped too. No more notices, no more community standards, no more official language trying to make something real that wasn't. Just nothing. Which, for the first time since this started, felt right. Thursday, I got a call from Hannah. "They're backing off," she said. "I noticed," I replied. "They've already started revising filings," she continued. "Anything referencing your parcel is being removed or reclassified as unverified." "Unverified," I repeated. "That's how they clean it up without admitting fault," she said. "Figures," she paused. "You still want to pursue anything?" she asked. I thought about it. Map, signs, public claim, everything they'd done. Everything they'd tried to turn into something permanent. Then I looked out the window. Fence standing straight. No one on the other side of it. "No," I said. Another pause. "You're sure?" she asked. "They heard it," I replied. "That's enough." Hannah let out a quiet breath. "All right," she said. "But if anything changes, it won't," I said. And for once, I believed that. That afternoon, Mason stopped by. Didn't park down the road this time. Pulled right up to the gate. Didn't need to sneak anymore. He leaned out the window. "Heard about what happened," he said. "Word travels," I replied. He nodded. People are talking, he said. Different tone now. How so? They're not asking when the trail's going in anymore, he said. They're asking what the HOA got wrong. I almost smiled. That's new, I said. Yeah, he replied. Turns out people don't like being sold something that isn't real. I didn't answer that. Didn't need to. He looked past me toward the pasture. Quiet, unchanged. Hell of a way to prove a point, he added. I shrugged. Didn't prove anything, I said. Just didn't let them change it. He nodded once, then drove off. No more to say. By the end of the week, Sage Hollow looked different. Not physically. Same houses, same roads, same clean lines. But something underneath it had shifted. The confidence was gone. The assumption that everything around them could be shaped to fit, replaced with something else. Caution. Because once you see a line hold, you stop testing it the same way. Saturday came again. I walked the fence line just like I had the week before. Same time, same path. But this time, no one followed it. No one crossed it. No one even stood on the other side pretending to consider it. Just open land, quiet, undisturbed. I stopped at the gate, rested my hand on the top rail, looked out across the pasture. Same view I'd had my whole life. Same ground, same boundaries. Nothing added, nothing taken. Exactly the way it was supposed to be. Inside, the notebook was still on the table, pages filled, entries stacked. Evidence of everything that happened. I flipped through it once, slow, from the first line, man and woman, white SUV, all the way to the last. Deed read. Claim ended. Then I closed it. Didn't need it anymore. Not because it didn't matter, but because it had already done its job. I set it back in the drawer. Same place it started. Same place it ended. Outside, the wind moved through the pasture. Fence posts held steady. Wire stretched tight between them. Not decorative, not symbolic. Just doing what they were built to do. Defining something simple. This side and that side. People talk about winning like it's loud, like it comes with something you can point to. But out here, it doesn't. It sounds like nothing. Looks like nothing. Feels like everything going back to the way it should have been. I stood there a little longer, then turned back toward the house, because there wasn't anything left to prove. The line was still there, and now, everyone knew it.
Here's the truth I walked away with. You don't win by shouting louder or moving faster. You win by standing steady long enough for the truth to catch up. I didn't out-talk anyone. I didn't out-fight anyone. I just kept a record, held my route, and waited until the fight had now here left to hide. That's not dramatic, but it's real. And sometimes real is the only thing that holds. There's something about land that teaches you that you don't rush it, you don't force it, you take care of it, you respect it, and when the time comes, you stand by it, not because it's easy, but because it's yours to rotate. Now, I'm curious about you. If you were in that position, people working onto something you built, something that mattered, would you confront it head on, or would you step back and build your case first? Go ahead and comment 1 if you stand your ground quietly, or 0 if you call it out right away. I read every single one, and if stories like this mean something to you, real situations, real people, and how things actually get handled, hit subscribe and stick around. There's more of this coming, and I think you want to hear them.